Okay, question one. Do you have an opinion on NVT price testing? Okay, so let's go to screen share. And someone was nice enough to send me the Glassnode link for the NVT. So what is NVT? Network value to transaction is the ratio, describes the relationship between market cap and transfer volume. It is considered analogous to the PE, price to earnings ratio, used in equity markets. When NVT is high, this indicates that the network value is outpacing the value being transferred on the network. This could represent legitimate growth stages or a potential price bubble. Conversely, when the NVT is low, this means that the network value isn't keeping up with the increased usage of the network, potentially representing bearish sentiment. Well, but where are we now on the NVT formula? So I would rather go to Willie's charts because he had good ones. So charts at woobull.com, and he had his NVT ratio there. Bitcoin NVT ratio. Okay, so this is a little bit smoothed out. It's not, I think it's better. And if we're looking at this, I mean, the NVT has not gone crazy high. Let's zoom in on current environment. Actually, I'm going to zoom in on this area. So as you can see, there is a band, and we have fallen below the buy area over here and rallied nicely into the all-time high. We are well below the sell area. So the NVT is certainly not overvalued. And therefore, the NVT looks fine. And it's, to me, it looks closer to a buying opportunity than a selling opportunity. Even if we just zoom in on recent price action, let's go since the crash, the COVID crash. The NVT did not even fall to the oversold levels during the crash of 2020, but it did fall to oversold levels here. So the NVT is just fine. That's a really good question. So the question is, this being the swing low. Well, let's measure the drop. The drop was probably about 30%, right? 35%. Interesting. So, man, it's my bare minimum. It's my absolute bare minimum for this being the bottom. I like the daily bottom here, but here's the problem. The problem is the weekly. The problem is the weekly. What is my confidence that this is the bottom for a 1 to 4 candle correction? That confidence is like 75%. I give it a 75% chance that we bottomed and are likely to go back to 50,000 and back test the moving average. What is my probability that we bottomed and we're going to go to new all-time highs without breaching this level? That probability is actually pretty low. It's like 51%. Okay, so there's because I am bullish on a short-term level here, but not the weekly long-term level. Okay, how likely is it that we will see the 200 moving average touching? So I'm assuming you mean the daily. How likely is it that we're going to touch it? Well, it's the same. We're going to touch it in the next few days. I'm going to say slightly less than 50%, because I am bullish off of this low for a 1 to 4 candle correction, which may start tomorrow or may have already started. I mean, this is the bottoming process of the MRI. I didn't think we would make a lower low on this candle, but we did on this candle. Like when this candle completed, I really thought that the MRI buy would happen at a higher level and not breach this low. but it did breach that low, but still gave us a perfect MRI buy. It's similar here. I do not believe this low would be breached and we get a similar bounce like this. Now, this bounce did not lead to a new all-time high, and it ultimately led to a new swing low. Will this MRI buy lead to a new all-time high, or will it just be a short-term move to the upside and leading us to a new low? We have no idea. But I believe that the current move in the market over the next week or two is going to be similar to what happened at the end of April. Okay, got another link, so I'm going to go ahead and click it since we're not live streaming. NVT price. Got it from Willy Woo's chart. Thank you for this. Yeah, this looks good. Did Willy tweet these out? So as you can see, a sharp crash in NVT price has historically, he could have circled this one too. I don't know why he didn't. We can zoom in. He could have circled this one. That was also a breach. I can't. Oh yeah, I can move it this way. That was a breach, but, and here's an important but. Over here, we went below it and stayed below it for a while. So actually, what does the blue line represent? A legend would be nice. But I'm just looking at charts here, right? So anytime this line is touched and then it bounces off the line or above the line, we do okay. But then again, here we are staying above the line but going down. So I don't know how much stock I would put in this. But certainly, if we go back up over this line, that's a very bullish sign. Very bullish sign. Two-day chart. Is the two-day chart def cross relevant? Let's see. It's not that relevant to me. It's also not taking place in an area where you would short. I'll stick to the one-day chart. I'll stick to the traditional one-day chart. And that def cross took place back here. And this was a way more significant def cross because it was taking place as the price was rebounding into the def cross. I was really hopeful here that it's going to be all over, but then Elon had to go ahead and ruin it. This 20-period moving average may not be all that crazy relevant anymore. I'd rather pay attention to the 200. By the way, if anybody wants to talk and ask their question, just raise their hand if you have a microphone. There's a hand raise feature. Do you also see a giant head and shoulders pattern on the daily? The daily chart, head and shoulders. I don't. Starting March 5th. That's February. That's March. And going on till now. I don't. I mean, you can say that this is a left shoulder, and that's the head, and that's the right shoulder, and then you have this slanted neckline that just broke. It's not great. I mean, you can say that. I wouldn't say that, and it doesn't really matter. There were other metrics that allowed you to identify the breakdown with moving averages and the break of prior swing low. You didn't need the head and shoulders. All right, guys. I don't see any other questions. Feel free. Oh, we got a hand up. All right, let's test the mic feature.
Hello.
Hi, how are you? Give us your name and where are you from? Just curious.
Oh, my name is Adnan. I'm a banking and finance student at the University of Leeds, and I am from London.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, and yeah. So my question for today is it a good time to convert altcoins into BTC?
Well, again, I have to trust the MRI indicator, and it is showing that Bitcoin dominance is at an MRI low. So I, of course, would never be holding altcoins, but yeah, this might be a good time because if Bitcoin rallies from this, it probably will hurt altcoins as people will rotate from the altcoins into Bitcoin. Bitcoin has taken a huge hit uh, from its market Bitcoin dominance perspective, and it's time that it rebounded. Can altcoins still outperform the rest of the year? It's possible, but it also depends on individual altcoins as well. I think there were a few that we were looking at that were topping based on MRI. I haven't looked at them in forever. Doge is still holding against Bitcoin, and it's still holding against the dollar as well. It's the weekly chart was on an MRI buy. How's it doing on a daily chart? Doge is still, well, the weekly is not looking nice. Which one was it that was topping? Was it Binance Coin or was it
Quite a
Cardano?
few.
Yeah.
Litecoin, Chainlink, loads of them were topping off.
I mean, look, I'm always going to be biased against altcoins. So I'm trying to not be too biased and use technical analysis. Like Ethereum right there, daily MRI. I mean, that's when you should be converting your Ethereum into Bitcoin. This is versus Bitcoin and versus the dollar. I mean, there was an extension C right there, but I do pay more attention. Oh, there was a weekly MRI sell on the dollar version. Yeah, so a lot of them, most of these altcoins, there's Monero. I mean, Monero gave you a nice buy on the MRI. Here comes a sell on the MRI this week.
Do you believe in the money flow cycle though? So it goes from BTC to high caps to mid caps to low caps and back to BTC?
I don't really believe in the cycles of it. I mean, when Bitcoin's in a bull market, people get wealthier and they want to try to make more money by betting on, pennies. Yeah, so here's Binance. Binance coin is on an MRI sell versus Bitcoin on a weekly scale, and versus the dollar, there was a warning last week and it dropped. So yeah, I would be careful right now with alts because the technical analysis, here's the, wow, daily. So you have a daily sell on Binance versus Bitcoin inside of weekly sell on Binance versus Bitcoin. So I would certainly be selling Binance and getting in versus Bitcoin. If I had Binance, I would be getting into Bitcoin. The TA is telling me to do that. What about Cardano? Cardano is still bullish on versus Bitcoin on a daily scale, and versus the dollar, it's still bullish. So Cardano is still bullish, but Binance is calling for a top. On a weekly scale, still bullish, still bullish. So Cardano is still bullish versus Bitcoin. Meanwhile, the Binance coin is not. So if you have access to the MRI, and you should, because I don't know many people that are in this trial run without access to the MRI for the Q&A.
Yeah, I can't lie. I'm in a coin called OMG, and I didn't even listen to your MRI, man.
OMG versus BTC. Yeah, see, I'm right top right there. I mean, I would be careful. It hasn't gone up much, but I would be careful. That's the weekly scale. That's the daily scale. Daily scale looks a little bit bullish, but the weekly scale is on an MRI top. So I would consider that as a potential exit.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and mute you, Adam. And you can go ahead and put your hand down. What do I think will perform better? The GBTC or the Ethereum version of GBTC ETHE? Look, I think altcoins have had a great run in this year, and it needs to reverse because it's gotten out of control. So I, of course, am bullish on Bitcoin, but I'm always bullish on Bitcoin. It's a bias look. Like I can look at an altcoin independently and give you an unbiased view based on technical analysis. But if you're asking me what's going to perform better over the next year, I'm always going to say Bitcoin, because Bitcoin doesn't have Bitcoin's probability of going to, of losing 95% is very small. But the probability of a 95% loss of any altcoin, including Ethereum, is actually high. Like we don't know what's going to happen with the Ethereum, 2.0 and the move to proof of stake. So you can't depend on Ethereum. Can't depend on Ethereum. That's the problem. All right, other questions? All right, Chris, you raise your hand. Go ahead and unmute. Ask a question.
Hey there, Chris. I'm in Austria, Europe, so not Australia, no kangaroos here. Maybe missed it in the past. What's the reason that you're always going into GBTC? Is that a tax reason that you're doing it?
It's a tax reason. It's a tax reason, and now that there are other products, like about a year ago, like 9 months ago, I was also going into that other ETF, by the Canadian one. I forgot what it's called, QBTC.
Yeah, I read about that.
Yeah, when QBTC launched, I got permission, but it didn't have the liquidity. It wasn't as liquid. It had a higher spread. It wasn't as liquid. So I stayed with GBTC, and today, if GBTC premium was positive, I would consider some of those other options, because now Canada has an actual ETF. But now my problem is I'm kind of stuck in GBTC because of the negative premium, and I don't want to take a premium loss. So I'm waiting for that premium to even out. And by then, hopefully there'll be a Bitcoin ETF where I don't have to worry about this premium. But then if the premium spikes above 0, then I'll have the benefit of the premium. So I don't care about the premium, but yes, I'm in GBTC for tax reasons. I could be in QBTC for the same tax reasons. I could also be in some of these other ones now for the tax reasons, but I can't get out of GBTC because of the negative premium, which is insane. And I don't understand how they're maintaining that. I don't understand why Barry Silbert isn't buying his own product to make it even out. So we'll see how it happens. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, looking forward to it. So all in all, since we have completely different tax laws here, for us non-Americans, grayscale Bitcoin is not something we should be investing in, right? But better to just buy Bitcoin via Coinbase or whatever you use.
Well, yes, but you should have similar. You should be able to trade on the stock market tax-free.
Actually, we do have that thing where you keep a coin for more than a year, then it's completely tax-free.
Oh yeah, no, then you just buy Bitcoin if you're willing to hold it for over a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just want to keep track of when you're buying and when you're selling. By the way, on GBTC, I just noticed, look at the last time we had an MRI warning buy right there. And these lows have not yet been breached. And here we are. This is the next time we have an MRI warning buy. So let's see. GBTC could be bottoming here finally. I mean, I really don't like how the weekly chart looks. I really don't like how the weekly chart looks, but the daily chart looks promising. It looks promising at least for a rebound to reevaluate the situation.
So a rebound up to the moving average, maybe down, touching the 200 MA, and then off to the moon.
Yeah, let's hope so. We're watching it every day. Right now I'm bullish into this moving average, but let's see how the next 24 hours go.
Quick question about coin. Has the 40% drop, in your opinion, already happened, or is it still upon us?
No, it looks like it's still upon us because look, there's nothing bullish in this chart whatsoever. This thing has been down every week since the IPO, which is why I thought the IPO price was insane. So we'll look at the daily chart. Hasn't been down every day, but I'm still waiting for my 50% correction on coin. So if we use the opening, we are down 36. If we use the opening day's high, we're down 43. I would need this to be at least 50%. And if the chart looks bad, I'm gonna wait for this to be 50%. So this 50% takes coin down below 200. So if coin gets to $200, then it's a potential buy. So that's what I'm going to wait for. Also, coin has never had a single MRI buy on the daily yet. Now, if we compare that to other recent IPOs, if we go, good question, US stocks, right? Let's go to Uber, Lyft. What else IPO'd recently? Uber. When was Uber daily first MRI buy? Whoa. Oh, Uber IPO'd a while ago, huh? Feels like yesterday, doesn't it? So Uber IPOs and Uber's first MRI buy came right here on the daily, which also happens to be the weekly MRI buy. That was its first one. And Uber rallied from that morning for 12%. Not much. 12% isn't much, but for a stock, 12% is not bad. I'm going to delete whatever that is. Now, then it went into an MRI sell, made new lows, and here's the next MRI buy on Uber. So that looks really, really nice. That one did better. From the opening, we went, well, 16%. Here's the next time there was an MRI buy. This would have been rough, but it was also an extension B buy. And from this area, we went right into an MRI sell. Not much, another 12%. MRI warning, like Uber has been really good. So these IPOs, when they hit their first MRI buys or sells, tend to be, in my experience, do well. We also have Lyft. When did Lyft IPO? See, the Lyft IPO did not have an MRI buy. It eventually had an MRI sell, which really tanked the stock. Here it is. Here's an MRI buy. The following day, we rally right into earnings, so it would have been dangerous. Nice rally, but then earnings tanked it. So we can, go from the middle of the candle. That's another 12% up in a few days. Here's the next MRI buy, though this would have been very tricky. Would have probably taken my stop loss out. So I would not have participated in this move. Slightly missed it. Beautiful MRI sell, though. and a beautiful MRI buy right here. This one I probably would have stayed patient with because of the MRI support. So yeah, so I really like the IPOs and watching for their first MRI opportunities. All right, we got a few more questions. Thank you, Chris. Stock question. Give your opinion on SCR, Canadian gambling stock. Let's go take a look. No, wait. Let me make sure that's the Canadian. Yeah, Score Media, Canada. Where is it more liquid, I wonder? We can look at it on a Canadian exchange. That's where it belongs. Ooh, interesting. So this has fallen quite a bit. I'm going to go to the weekly chart first. Man. So the weekly chart is telling me it still has a little bit of downside, but not enough downside to short. Those days are long gone. The daily chart, however, I got a couple of green arrows here. We're holding MRI support. I would be fairly comfortable with a low risk trade here. So I'm going to do this. So since you're in the private Q&A, I would, that's price range. Let me get, where's the long short? Long position. So I would rather, I mean, we're coming in a day late. Would have been nice to pick it up off the extension B, closer to an MRI bottom. But if I was to go long here, my stop loss would be right there. How much risk is that? That's 6%. That's actually not little, but it is a daily scale. I would set a limit order and try to buy it a little bit cheaper. Keep the risk to maybe 5%. And on the upside, well, I don't know where the upside is, but and I don't like risk reward ratios. So let's do something like this. So too bad you don't get a chance to buy it on Friday, but I hate buying things on Friday. But something like this, I would be comfortable with that. On a daily scale, it has fallen quite a bit. As long as the company has decent fundamentals, let's see if we can hold this MRI support. None of these MRI supports have ever been broken. I'm going to trust it. So something like this. I mean, I'm not going to cheat. Let's just say risk reward ain't great, but I want to get back to this one of these days. So remind me in the future private Q&A to follow up with this stock. So say you buy it right now at current price. I'm initially keeping the reward right under 20 bucks as a round number, 20 Canadian bucks. So let's see which way it goes. Okay. I don't like the fact that it's consolidating here, but if we go up today and close at a new closing high and a new closing swing high, then I'm, bullish to recover a lot of this candle and at least close the gap. Closing this gap allows me to set a break-even stop loss. Also, this thing did a 10-to-1 reverse split. I don't like reverse splits. Reverse splits are bad. That could have changed my mind on the stock a little bit. Oh, yeah, I should have known. It's right there. 1 for 10. Oh, man, I don't like reverse splits. That really tanked the price, huh? . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . Why would they reverse split when the stock is rising? Usually do a reverse split when the stock is crashing. Unity Software Inc., ticker U. Let's go take a look. Oh, nice MRI buy right off of earnings. It did not tank the stock. That's the daily chart. What about the weekly? The weekly's been going down for quite some time, but it's holding the MRI support. This looks like it was an IPO not that long ago that never tanked. So looks like they're kind of know what they're doing. I don't like that we're below the MRI support line, but we don't have to be below it. We could rally above it. I am leaning bullish on this stock. Once again, it's not trading advice, guys, but I would rather be long than short. And my stop loss would be just below that secondary low to be raised in the near future. And this can certainly rally back to 100. So I'm more bullish than bearish here. Has fallen quite a bit. Will I be able to give you more warning in the future about the Q&As? I'm not sure, maybe sometimes. The thing is, I don't know when I'm going to be doing these things. So usually they're going to take place right after my live stream because I stream from the same Zoom session. So, and my live streams are kind of random, but when I'm in the same place, I tend to do them at approximately the same time. So I will try to do that, but I can't promise. But yeah, I can do these more often. I could, like right now, my goal is twice a week, but maybe they'll be 3 times a week. Sometimes they'll be shorter, sometimes they'll be longer. Until, you know, I figure out what works, what doesn't work. Maybe I'll have to pre-decide when they are, but I like the fact that I stream whenever A, I have time, and B, something is interesting in the market. And if I'm already in front of a computer, it's easy for me to just send the automated email with the link to the Zoom that I'm streaming from, so anyone can just join. I mean, it's breaking the prior swing high versus Bitcoin, so it's bullish on the daily. It's consolidating, doesn't seem to have much volatility. On the weekly, it's also bullish. It's a nice triangle going on here. So this shitcoin is bullish. Still bullish. Yeah, so Elon, so this guy, I mean, I'm one of the few that doesn't have him blocked. I've never heard of him, but everyone has already explained how crypto whale's a scammer, which is not surprising. Like, it's the crypto space. There is a 90% chance that the person in crypto is a scammer. I mean, that's historically been the case. The space is dominated by scammers. And yeah, Emperor BTC got 100,000 followers. Nice job. Explain to Elon that you're talking to a scammer. And Elon replied to him. Nice. Jack Mollers went off. Jack Mollers did a great job. Good job, Jack. Shout out. He had a nice rant. Should read that one. Yeah, I mean, look, Elon's a busy man. He's a CEO of 2 companies, and you know what he does in his free time. So he doesn't know the space very well. He really doesn't. Well, he's too busy to learn about Bitcoin. He's not busy enough to use Twitter. It's very different things. Like, I use Twitter all the time, but I should be reading more about Taproot. Speaking of Taproot, this is what's important. This is important. Elon, not important. This is important. You know, it was nice to see Binance finally find Taproot compliant block. Any advice to young traders getting into Bitcoin? Paper trade, keep your risk low. Just watch your risk. It's my only advice, really. Just start slow. Don't use too much leverage. Don't use any leverage. Learn to trade before you learn to leverage. Also, my advice for you, if you are young and you're not familiar with Tyler Jenks's YouTube channel, it's an absolute must. So Google Hyperwave YouTube. Go over to the Hyperwave YouTube channel. Click on videos, all videos. Now go to the very first video. You can sort it. And start with the first video and go through it, because Tyler Jenks was an absolute genius and knew everything about trading and technical analysis. Do you think the backwardation is a good signal to buy the dip? I see backwardation on BitMax futures. Okay, so I am dividing the current price by the future price. And the future price is significantly lower. Well, it was a lot more lower than the spot price. So right now it's almost back to 1. So it's pretty much even. So it doesn't really help you. The price of the future was significantly higher than the price of the underlying, because we're dividing by the price of the future and we have a number less than 1. So right here, throughout all of these months, throughout April mostly, the price of the future is way higher than the price of the spot. This was a 9.5% difference between the June future being 9% more expensive than the spot. So at these levels, if you want to play the spread game, you would sell the future because it's more expensive, and you would buy the spot because it's cheaper at these levels. If we do the September one, you can also do June versus September. And you do the same exercise. This was 14% lower. Okay, well, I might have gotten this a little bit too high, but need to do this. Need to get this a smidge lower. Is that better? Yeah, that's better. Smidge higher. Anyway, I'm not going to waste time. So this was 14% lower, but it's also hard to get the very bottom. So realistically, you could have gotten this area. Okay. And right here, again, in early April, and we can look at the price of Bitcoin in early April. Right here. So this is where early April. So this is where the futures were out of control and extremely high versus Bitcoin. That's how you play it. But right now, they've evened out. They're not flipped yet. They're not on the other side. So you don't have the opposite trade. This is when you exit your spread trade, not when you enter the spread trade. Do you believe in the Wyckoff distribution? It's not whether I believe in it or not. It's just that I don't use it. I've mentioned this on a public stream very, very recently. I do not use the Wyckoff distribution because I find it challenging to identify, and I find that it takes a long time to develop. But if we Google the Wyckoff distribution, the point is right here is where things break down. Here is where things break down and shit hits the fan. But I don't need the Wyckoff distribution to tell me that. I know shit's hitting the fan right here when we're breaking below this support line, and we're below this very critical 128-day moving average, and we've broken the MRI support, and we've broken the prior swing low. Now, when this was happening, again, we were right here. I was still kind of hopeful that the moving average will support it, but right here, that's over. I am not bullish on this candle. I become bullish on the MRI buy, and that trade gets hit with a stop loss. And yes, we've rallied quite a bit on this big crash, but right now I'm not chasing this this dip because I have no idea what's going to happen. Because look, the weekly chart is still looking ugly, telling me that there's more downside based on MRI. And the daily chart, it's going to be hard to get that red star because it would need to go lower than current candle. But this is not the kind of candle I want to rush in on buying unless it's a very short-term opportunity. Now, here is the 4-hour chart, and the 4-hour chart could have given me an opportunity later tonight. And the 1-hour chart did not give me an opportunity either because this took place in the middle of nowhere. We can go to lower level time frames. Like the 1-hour chart told me to actually go short right here. And if I did go short here, at some point, my stop loss would have gotten hit on this, well, profit take stop loss. I would have kept lowering my stop loss. The MRI didn't load. So I don't really need the Wyckoff like complication and longevity to tell me what's going on. I have other metrics that will always do the same. Do we need to close above the weekly 21 exponential moving average this week to stay bullish on Bitcoin territory? So I'm going to go to the weekly chart. Here is the Bitcoin 20 simple, which is probably similar to the 21 exponential. I don't have the exponential moving average here, but I'm pretty sure that the exponential 20 is going to be somewhere in this vicinity of 48,000. This week would need to rally. I mean, we don't need to close above these moving averages this week, but if this week closes above 40,000, I would consider the low to be in. But we would need the week to close above 40,000, which we won't know for about 5 more days. Do you think people will rush right back into alts when going back in or stay with Bitcoin? I think right now people will stay in Bitcoin. In a way, I don't mind Bitcoin going all the way down to 20K because some alts are actually going to die if that happens. Can you make the case that the shitcoin DeFi space needs to feel more pain? A lot of the rage quits before we have more upside. Yes, easily. I can easily make the case. The NFT space, the DeFi space, I mean, it's all nonsense. And the Doge people, the Cardano people, the, God forbid, the Hex people, it's all like Ponzi's pretty much. And, well, Hex more so than Cardano. Cardano is actually trying to build something. I disagree whether it's useful or not, but at least they're building something. Hex is just a Ponzi. So, yeah, people need to feel the Ponzi's die. Yeah, I agree. The funding rates are not being affected much, which is concerning. You really want to see, if I go to the funding rate, and, you know, BitMax is not the ideal exchange for this because they've lost a lot of volume. But, yeah, this told me that the market is bottomed. And this led to a ridiculous rally. There's nothing there. So this is not really that bad of a crash. It's bad from a price perspective, but not from, you know, capitulation. This is not capitulation because the funding rate is telling me that it's not capitulation. So he wrote this article on January 10th, 2015, a few days before the market crashed. And right here, he explained how we don't have capitulation yet, and the market is still going to crash, and it crashed like 4 days later. And then people blamed him for crashing the market. So that was a greatly timed article. I too was waiting for a bigger crash. So you didn't have the price on this. So this was written on January 10th, 2015. Technically, he wrote the article a few days earlier because it took him like a day to edit it. So he writes the article probably on January 9th, saying that everyone thinks that Bitcoin has bottomed. We have not yet hit capitulation. And then we had this. So then like 3 days later, you see same pattern. Look at this. That was that pattern I showed you guys on a 1 hour chart. And then from the day of the article, we fall 40% in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. In 5 days, we fall 40%. From there, now this was already a big bear market, but he said that's how bear markets end. And there was no funding rate, obviously. This is too old. But you can see all the other metrics like basically reset. That's capitulation. Oh, wow, I actually had forgotten. I can't believe that's an MRI cell right there. Beautiful MRI cell. That was a big rebound too, right off that. So yeah, so this was the area. See, you think you bottomed, you go up a little bit, and then you reach this area, and then you just crash. Same exact thing on this hourly chart right there. You think you bottomed, you go up a little bit, and then boom, you crash for real. So, but that's on the hourly scale, not the daily scale. After Elon's statements about Bitcoin being really bad for the environment, do you think other big companies will not want to have Bitcoin on their balance sheets because they fear public backlash about being environmentally unfriendly? It's very hypocritical because Elon's batteries are way more environmentally unfriendly than Bitcoin. It's possible. It's possible. But hey, they can just watch their accounts go down and Michael Saylor becoming the richest man in the world. Capitalists don't usually do things outside of their financial interests for stupid reasons. So I don't see it. I don't see it. I still see companies going into Bitcoin. From a TA perspective, do we have room to go lower than the 200 MA on the weekly? I mean, the MRI shows the green line at around 17.5. Let's go take a look. So I don't need the 7-period moving average anymore. So we can turn that into the 200. I do not see us going below the 200-period weekly moving average. And it would be scary as hell if we hit it. But here's the good news. The good news is that if we do hit it, that is a perfect back test of this top. But I don't think we're going to go below this top. So if this is a much stronger bear market, by the time it gets here, maybe this moving average will creep up enough to be closer to 18, 19. And like you said, 17.5. I don't see us touching it on this round because we're in the 2017 style bull market, more like the 2013 style bull market. Remember what I was saying all year, guys? I was looking for a double hump on this market. And while I did expect the first hump to be a little bit higher than 65, initially I was only expecting it to be 45, but then I kept raising my target. So pretty clear that the first hump is over. Now, how far do we go down? In 2013, we never even hit the 50. But this time around, I'm pretty sure we're gonna hit the 50. So we pretty much did. So it's possible for us to go a little bit lower. I don't think we're gonna close below the 50. I don't expect us to close below the 50. So I don't expect us to touch the 200. Now, after the next hump, I do see us going and touching the 200. In TradingView, price of Bitcoin in Coinbase is above 37,000, but no one I know can get into Coinbase or Coinbase Pro. What could be going on? What's going on is very simple. It's Coinbase being grossly incompetent once again, where you're not able to trade. during volatile markets. It's probably why their stock's going down. And hey, their stock is close to my buy point at around $200 because I'm still waiting for a 50% drop in their stock before a potential buying opportunity of the Coinbase company. So this drop from the swing high on the opening day, we have now fallen 51%. But if you take the opening price, we have only fallen 45%. So if Coinbase stock falls below 200, and if they're down right now, that's not going to be very good for their stock. And you could pick up Coinbase at a nice discount, which I've been saying is likely to happen.
Yeah, hi, Tone. So my question is that considering, so if we look in a macro scale and we look at June, we look at all of these on-chain analytics data, like option contracts and stuff like that, do you believe in the next month or two, everything should clear up and there should be some sort of volume coming in to Bitcoin from like altcoins and stuff like that, and eventually people buying in, considering on the 4th of July, it's the Fed day. So, do you see things eventually clearing up very soon, a couple of weeks?
Yeah, no, I do see this market, this drop as close to ending. Now, by close to ending, we did hit. How low did we get today? We broke 30K. We hit 29,000 for a minute, but we did. So is this the low? I have no idea. The funding rates tell me that it's not. But we're rebounding nicely. Yeah. But I do think that the low is coming this month or next month. We've fallen too much. And while there isn't that many oversold metrics, I do think the bottom is coming soon, and people are going to be scared to buy back in, opening up a nice opportunity.
Right. So are you looking for the funding rate to be something similar to like the March crash, the COVID-19?
No, I'm not expecting this. That was a once in a lifetime kind of crash. I'm expecting it, something more like this. Something not as bad as what happened. So, I mean, look at the funding rates back in 2018 at the height of 20K and right after on the first big drop. Now it's non-existent. But also, we should probably be looking at a different funding rate. Someone else gave me an indicator of a better funding rate. I gotta find it. But it's possible we already bottomed. I have no idea, but this is not aligning with my other indicators. I still think over the next few weeks, we're just gonna go down, maybe not as low as we hit, but I'm gonna wait for my weekly to give me an MRI buy. I'm not gonna rush into it right now. Sure, if you manage to catch it right at 30,000, you rebounded well for 5K, but people could have thought that 36K was the low, bought in and got crushed as it went down to below 30. Either way, I don't have enough reason to buy this dip other than we've fallen too much. And for me, that's not a good enough reason. For some people it is, for me, it's not. I'll try to give a little bit more heads up on when the QA is, but it'll be the day of. I'll just try to give you like a few hours heads up. But this will happen a few times a day, and you kind of have an idea of when I stream. But when I'm in foreign countries, those streams will take place at slightly different times. I do like streaming at this hour because at this hour, most people around the world are awake. West Coast is waking up, and Far East is going to sleep. Will you definitely wait with going back in until you have an MRI buy, or is a bounce off the 50 MA weekly strong enough an indicator for you to go back in? So I'm assuming you're specifically talking about the weekly chart. Had this weekly chart came down lower and it hit this 50 MA, I would have considered it, but it didn't quite get there. And also I wasn't like paying attention for a trade at that moment. I don't necessarily need the MRI buy on a weekly, but I would probably stay patient. I would just stay patient. I'd rather buy the breakout. It's not easy timing the dip. This is a good dip if you're a very long-term trader. If you're a long-term trader, but based on this funding rate, I'm a little skeptical. If that funding rate was anywhere close to what happened in March of 2020, I would be all over screaming, you know, it's still a buy. And if you did buy yesterday for the long term, you may just have to wait a month and then you'll be back in that profitable position. I'm not expecting this to keep going for the next 3 months. I'm expecting this to end relatively soon. And by relatively soon, I mean, before the end of June. Like, I'm not giving this thing more than 3 to 4 more weeks of downside. I am very bullish on the weekly MRI that's coming. And the lower that MRI is, the more bullish I am on a big rebound. Like, I'd rather see an MRI buy at the low, at the 50-period moving average, right near 30K, than I want to see it up here, because you'll still get an MRI up here. As long as this week and the next 3 weeks are lower than 46,700, we're going to get the MRI buy. I'd rather have it lower than higher. But either way, it's a bullish sign. Do you think the outages of exchanges like Coinbase and Kraken that we saw right now are due to bad programming or on purpose? I don't believe it's on purpose. I believe it's bad programming. And I like one of those companies. I like Kraken. I do not believe it's on purpose. Because if it's on purpose, that's probably illegal. And they can get in a lot of trouble for that. So I do not believe that these companies are malicious. So therefore, I have to assume that it's technological and not malicious. On the relief bounce we are seeing, how far do you think it may go before we possibly correct back down? All right, let's go find out. I'm going to be answering this question live. So I'm going to close the question and let's go to screen share. Okay, so here's our relief rally. And the question is, how far can we go up before going back down? For me, the critical level is this former MRI support line. And not because it was the MRI support line. That doesn't matter anymore. The MRI support line has been removed. But if we drop the MRI, I can go ahead and draw it the same exact line where it was. And you can see how it was support right there. You can even raise it. Like, we can go as high as this. Basically, everything comes together at the next depth cross. If we rally, it would be very challenging to get above this area. And as you can see, this area is approximately $48,000. When this 48,000 was support, it looked really good. And that was also right on the MRI candle to reverse the market at 48,000. When this did not bring us to a new all-time high, trouble set in when we came back to 48,000. And in that area, once again, like that $48,000, $50,000 area. And that was now support of the higher level moving average. And when that was lost, everything kind of fell apart. So this region between 47,500 and 49,000 is, for me, the last major resistance. If Bitcoin can get above this area, I think we're going to crush it to 70, 80, and probably 100. But it's going to be very challenging to get through this area. So that is my maximum on the bounce. More realistically, we're going to be, threatening new lows before we can get back over the 200 period moving average. This is a very weak looking position for the price of Bitcoin. So this is a little troublesome. But if we do break above it, that is going to be, for me, a good area. And if we get rejected here, and we get rejected here in a strong way, then I might be wrong, and this is a bear market. I will know if we are in a bear market or not based on what happens on a back test at 50,000. What do you think is behind all the fake news FUD that we seem to be getting hit with on nearly daily basis? There's nothing behind it. I mean, it's been this way since the day I learned about Bitcoin. Since the day I learned about Bitcoin, it's been this way. In fact, if you go to my website and you go to the blog, right there, what is the biggest threat to Bitcoin? That was the article I was looking for. What is the biggest threat to Bitcoin? And look at my answer. The biggest threat to Bitcoin is misinformation. I wrote this in 2014 that is the biggest threat to Bitcoin. So it's not a recent thing that there is, fake news and FUD. This has always been that way. And it's very frustrating to try and fight it. It's a combination of people's personal agendas and their, I guess, inability to understand the power and significance and the goodness of Bitcoin. On the monthly candle, we have a bearish candle, which looks like the top during a typical end of a bull market. Any concerns? Let's go take a look. So, yes, but the candle that bothers me more is actually the doji candle. That is a typical candle that ends bull markets. You want to look for big shadows at the top of the candle, like this and this. So this one was bigger, relatively speaking, to the candle body. And you want to look for doji candles. And this candle does not look very good. Are there concerns? Yes. But we are in a bull market. And in a bull market, you can have 1 or 2 months of bearish candles. Yeah, this is not a good looking candle. Am I on the log chart? I am. Let's see how the month ends. We still have 8 days to go. Okay. It is concerning. A candle like this is also more indicative of the end of the bear market than the start of one. So let's see how big this shadow is at the bottom of that candle. This would be a bad candle. That's a capitulation candle. Well, this was the daily capitulation. This was the capitulation on a daily scale. This was the big weekly scale capitulation. And back here, there was a couple of them. So it's a little concerning, but I'm trying to trust the MRI here. Also, I want to look at Heikinashi. And Heikinashi doesn't look too bad yet. So let's see how this goes. What do you think of the weekly MRI support line at 18,000 on the Bitstamp chart? Well, I don't use Bitstamp charts. I use an index chart, but we will go ahead and take a look. Weekly MRI support line. Let's see. Weekly chart, MRI. Oh, MRI support line. I'm thinking of RSI. Never mind. Oh boy. That's in a very convenient place now, isn't it? That is right at 20,000 or a smidge below that. So we can go and touch it on a weekly scale without closing down there, close above 20K, and that's good. I think it's a little too low. I certainly don't expect it in one shot. I like the fact it's in the vicinity of 20,000. And 20,000 is my absolute low for this drop. And I'm also on record saying this drop is going to be quick, relatively speaking. I don't think this down move is going to drag out for months. I think this down move is going to be fairly short.
Hi, Tone. So my question is, during this drop, do you believe for the next, because firstly, I see it, there's two scenarios. If we could break above around the, let's say the 42K or the 48K region in the next couple of weeks, eventually towards the end of the year, I believe we could top out around 100K US dollars in Bitcoin. However, if we go through a couple of months accumulation zone between the around the 30K region or even lower to the 42K region for a couple of months in almost like a mini bear market compared to 2013, do you believe there could be a possibility of a super cycle in which we go beyond the 100K BTC price and obviously an extended into next year?
Yeah, so I mean, to me, your scenarios are almost one and the same. I don't see a big difference between them. The big question is, right now, the only critical question is, was this the low? And we'll know if it's the low by being able to get over this cluster of resistance at 50,000. Now, we'll know it's not the low if we can't. Now, there is a big, huge gap of can't, right? We could go to 50,000, get rejected and go down. We could also not be able to get above 40,000. But I will only consider this to be a low that will not be breached is if we are trading above 50K. As long as we are trading below 50K, this low is potentially in jeopardy. Now, the next question is, the low being in jeopardy, is it going to get breached next month or is it going to get breached after the summer? Well, we don't know yet. So if we are unable to cross the 200 period moving average and we start to go down, then we're going to breach this sooner than later, which is the better of the scenarios. Because the shittier of the scenarios is a rally into 50,000 over the next 2 to 3 months, being rejected at 50,000, and then having a slow grind back to 40, and then people panic at 40 for a 50% correction to 20, in which case we do break the slow, but now we break it in August or September or October. So there's no way to know that at the moment. But right now, I am very neutral. I'm a little bit leaning bullish only for a dead cat bounce and then reevaluate. So this is my view on it, but I do not see a bear market. Even if we crash next week to 25K, I then see us over 100,000 by end of year. But if we go to 50 and then come back to 40 and then 35 and then crash to 20, and now we're sitting here, you know, by the time all that happens, we're sitting here going into September, it's going to be a lot harder for us to rally all the way above 100,000 this year. But the rally off of that low will come over the next, 9 months. So we'll break 100,000 next year instead of this year. So that's the part that's hard to tell. But this is the big resistance cluster I'm going to be worried about. And the longer it takes for us to get over there, it is, unless it takes a really long time, and then the easier. Like if we are unable to break 42 for the next 2 months, and then we're breaking 42, then by that time, it'll be a very different picture, and this resistance will not be as strong. So the $50,000 area is a very strong resistance cluster, but only in the month of June and July. It's not a strong resistance cluster before or after that. So it's a very specific time period when it's a strong cluster, because that's when the depth cross is going to take place. And that's when like a lot of things happen, basically just June actually. By the time July rolls around, it's not going to be that strong anymore. So this is only strong resistance for the month of June. Are SegWit and Taproot the same thing? No, they're not. I'm just an idiot. They're completely different. The reason I ask is that you always say SegWit. No, it's because I'm an idiot. They're not. When you are speaking about Taproot. No, we got SegWit 3 years ago. SegWit is in. SegWit was a scaling solution, and there was an ability to do Taproot. It was an ability to do Lightning, and now we're trying to get Taproot, which is also well, it's not the same scaling solution, but it makes transactions faster and less weight, and also more private. If we get rejected around $50,000 area, what do you think is the likely scenario for future price correction, and how long could that last? That's a good question. Okay, so let's talk about, let's say we have a very strong resistance in the month of June. Here's my resistance cluster, and I'm going to make it kind of thinnish. I'll put it here. Okay. So, and it has to be in June. So I'm going to slide it over. So now, if we move into this cluster from here, what happens? Well, at that point, say we get a rejection. This rejection could be the best thing that happens to Bitcoin or the worst. And there's no way for us to know. So this could be the 200 period moving average. It could also keep rising like that. Jeez. I'm gonna have to get rid of all of those. So that's the moving average. So if we can make it there, on a pullback, we could bounce off the moving average. Okay, I don't want that anymore. I'm gonna get rid of all of these. And now I'm gonna take this, oh, I might as well. And now we can bounce like that. That's one option. But the other option is this, and make a new low. And we don't know, and we're not gonna know until this happens. So this is what we're watching. Okay, but these are the critical levels to keep an eye on. I think this would be hard. This is the least likely path is straight up. I think if we go up, we get rejected, come back down, and then if we are able to get support at that $42,000 range, where we kind of crash down for that final capitulation, then we can go up nicely. Or we go and make a new low. It's impossible to say right now. But this is the critical zone I'm looking at. If it can't get that far, then we're looking at this, a rejection from here, or we're going down already, and then it becomes easier. Then this becomes weaker resistance by the time we get up there. I do think that there is a slightly greater than 50% chance that the low is in, but we still need a few days to wait and see. If we can get above 42 or 41, I'm confident we can get close to 50. So I am going to be pretty bullish between 42,000 and 48,000 for that $6,000 stretch. But once we break that 40, once we get into that 48 range, I'm going to be very cautious, anticipating the potential of a major rejection. What do you think about the double bottom at the 2 hour, which could cascade in the greater double bottom? Let's see. We go to the 2 hour chart. I can look at the 1 hour chart. I don't really need the 2 hour chart. Well, right now it looks good because of the, I don't like this consolidation on a 1 hour chart. We can look at a 2 hour chart. But we've broken the prior swing high. That's bullish, but we're now sitting at a moving average, and that's potential rejection. Like, this is good. I'm more bullish than bearish here because we've broken the prior swing high. Look what happened here. Same situation. Here we made a lower high like this. This is this. And then this candle here breaks that high. And then we went higher, we hit a moving average, and we got rejected. But here we broke the first moving average by breaking this high. So we have room into the next one. Now we've broken the swing high, but we're stuck at the moving average. If we break this moving average, we have one more moving average, but it's so close, breaking one is pretty much breaking both. Here it was much wider. But right now, this chart, I am bullish because we broke the prior swing high. So for me, there are buying opportunities right here at the break of the prior swing high, even though you have a moving average causing you trouble. And it's the same here. I do like it here at the break of the prior swing high. So I would rather be bullish right now than bearish. With my stop loss, somewhere at the bottom of this candle. But if we break this blue line, blue moving average, whichever one that is, probably the 50. Yeah, 50. And the 200's up there somewhere. But if we can break this, then yeah, I'm definitely going to set a break-even stop loss, even if we only hitting the blue. We haven't crossed these moving averages in a while. It'd be nice to finally do it. And then if we can break this top, the 41.7 top, then I'm bullish all the way into the next moving average, which by then could be coinciding with the MRI resistance line. I believe you once mentioned that getting a muted fifth candle in an MRI count can increase the likelihood of creating a full MRI. That's correct. What do you consider a muted candle? And do you have any other candlestick tricks like that? Sure, that's a simple question to answer. When you have the fifth candle like this, you see how the fifth candle is happening in consolidation. It makes it a lot easier to get to an MRI top, which didn't happen in this case. Here's an example of somewhere in the middle, but here's an example of a bad fifth candle. So when you have a fifth candle like this one, you can see how the price has gone up a lot. And this candle itself has a very high close. It's the biggest candle we've had, in all year, probably. Well, in months, actually, since the COVID crash. And in order for you to get an MRI top, you now need to be above the close of this candle. And considering how high we've just gone up, I mean, we just went up 200% straight up, okay? That is the kind of candle this makes it very difficult to get an MRI top. Now, did we get an MRI top? We did, but if you look at this MRI top it didn't even come breaking that candle. If you look at the close of this candle, the close of this candle is 33,096. The close of the MRI top candle is 33,138. We broke it. We broke that top literally by a few dollars. I didn't think we did, but we did. The way the MRI is structured is that this was going to be an MRI top, even if we closed down here below 30,000. It still would have been an MRI top because at some point during this candle, we traded above the close of that fifth candle. But we basically got lucky in that the candle following the fifth candle was a bullish candle and we kind of stayed up there. But I don't like to see fifth candles that are so big because it just makes the rest of the MRI trend kind of crappy. I want to see the opposite. I want to see the big drops happen at the end of the MRI trend. So not at the beginning of it. So let me see an example. Like this, even like this, right? The big drops happened at the end, though the big drops kind of happened all throughout. Let me find another example. Weekly chart, maybe the weekly chart will help. No, it's hard to find an example right now. I mean, I have many other charts, but like look at the S&P 500. See, I love the seventh candle. 7 candle, 8 candle gets you right into the swing for an MRI top, and then it's absolutely perfect for me. This one was good also, but then I became bullish again right here on the green star. All right, hope that answers it. Someone in the chat in the earlier stream mentioned the Wyckoff. Do you think that the Wyckoff method is worth keeping an eye on in the future? Sure. There's nothing wrong with the Wyckoff method. It's just not my specialty. And I don't like trying to track the Wyckoff method. I just feel that it has too much variance, just like Elliott waves have way too much variance. It's I don't like those methods because future price points change the interpretation of current price points. So it's hard for me to like explain it without trying to show it, and I don't want to spend too much time trying to show it, but the daily chart did look like a Wyckoff consolidation here, but if something else would have happened, it would have kept consolidating. You could have altered your view of the Wyckoff method. It's similar to what I do with triangles, but the reason why triangles are not as bad is because with the triangle, one line always has to stay consistent, the horizontal line. And then you can alter the trend line a little bit based on what's happening in the future. But with things like Wyckoff and things like wedges, it feels like when you have multiple elements that could be altered based on future price points, I'm not a big fan of those patterns. The best way I can explain. What do you think of the yearly SPX MRI count? I think it already completed. So I think it completed. So if I go to the 12-month count, right, so we had a big crash this year to start the year off. There was a huge crash, but then we rallied. So now this year is, you know, the year I wouldn't exactly go bullish on, but if next year is bullish, I think S&P 500 could go parabolic. It looks like it's ready to go parabolic. Like S&P 500 could go to 7,000. I don't see why not. 70,000, sorry. Especially if there's hyperinflation in Bitcoin, in US dollars future. Now remember, the S&P 500 is priced in dollars. And if those dollars, you know, turn into the Zimbabwe dollar, then the price of the stock market is going through the roof. But I'm still bullish here, just a bullish trend. I prefer the 6-month look instead of the annual look. like the 6-month chart is looking great, because look, the 6-month chart topped. We have 4 consecutive MRI tops going into the dot-coms. We only had 1 MRI top going into the financial crash. And we are now working on the 3rd consecutive MRI top. And that could be the top of the S&P, the 3rd consecutive MRI top, which is coming in about 3 years, 3 years, 3 more years. Is it in the trade zone after an MRI top? It's in no trade zone after an MRI top, but again, it's a yearly chart. Like I wouldn't go crazy with that. I mean, use lower level time frames. Right now, the weekly chart of the S&P is on a no trade or bearish trade. But if the weekly chart goes above, 4,228, then the weekly chart becomes a buy. It doesn't matter if the yearly is on a no trade. I mean, you're not going to spend all year not trading because of a yearly MRI. That makes no sense. If the S&P rallies, then do you think Bitcoin will go up along with it? A little bit. I mean, Bitcoin is its own dynamic. I think it's a positive. It'll be positive news for Bitcoin. But S&P going to new all-time highs does not imply that Bitcoin goes to new all-time highs. S&P going to new all-time highs could simply imply that Bitcoin can make it to 50,000. I still think that Bitcoin and stocks are generally correlated, but not in terms of magnitude, just in terms of general direction.